Welcome guys to another episode of Tier Maker. So in this video we're going to be ranking gaming controllers just based off of how they are as an experience to use. And yeah, without any further ado, let's get started with the PS3 controller. And yeah, the PS3 controller is, I think it's definitely a little bit clunky. I think that the PS4 slimmed it down a little bit, which made it good. Which I think it just had like a little bit too many harsh corners. But besides that, I think it's an alright controller. All the buttons are mapped out pretty good. But I'll give it like a baseline B tier. Next up, the PS5 controller. Now for a few of these, I haven't gotten that many experiences to use them. I only have ever used this one at a friend's house, but I think it's a pretty good design. It definitely takes like the sleeker shape from the Xbox controller. I think the only real bad part is at the little ends of the controller. I think that it has like a good curved shape, but then it stops really abruptly with those, which I think isn't that bad. But besides that, it has like a good weight to the controller and it looks nice. So I'll put it like I'll definitely put it above. So I'll give it A tier. Next up, the Genesis controller. Now this one I also haven't used that many times, but it was just kind of like a pretty average controller. I'll give it C tier. Next up, the NES controller. It's pretty bricky. It is not that comfortable to hold. I mean, the button mapping's alright. There's not really that many buttons on it to work with, but you know, it's not that great to hold. I will say it doesn't feel that great on your hands. Next up, the PS4 controller. I think it goes off of the PS3 controller and just makes it a lot smoother. I do like that. Although when I got the PS4, I will say I was so confused by not the PlayStation, well, no, not the PlayStation button, but like that weird slab of a button on the front. That definitely did trip me up. But I think it's a pretty good controller. I'll give it A tier. Next up, the Joy-Cons. Now, these ones, I will say I really like their versatility. I like you can play docked, or you can play on the TV, and or handheld. It's a good thing. But one thing that definitely docks them down a bit is the Joy-Con drift. I think from the few sets of the Joy-Cons I've had, well, actually no, I bought some just a little bit ago, and within 3 days of using them, they got drift. Luckily, they're really weird with their drift, so what I'm able to do is they'll have insane drift. I take them out, put it in another set, take that set out, put the new ones back in, and then the drift is gone. It's like ridding away a spirit. It's so weird. But I mean, they're still like nice, and you know the button mapping's fine. So I'll give it B tier. Actually, no, eh. I As a controller they're nice, but I'll bump it down because of drift. Next up, my Lord and Savior Xbox 360 controller. This one's just great. It has a nice smooth shape, button mapping is perfect, no drift, no issues, has a good shape, like a good sized joystick, has like a good grip on it, like it has little indents for your fingers. It's just the ideal controller. I'm holding this controller right now in my hand and I'm just admiring this thing. It's really great. Round of applause. Definitely S tier. Next up, the Wii controller. Now, in idea, this thing looks absolutely awful to use. Well, this is the Wii with the Wii nunchuck. The Wii by itself as a controller really sucks, but when you add the nunchuck, it's an experience. The main two games I've been playing on the Wii recently is Sonic and the Black Knight and Sonic Unleashed for the Wii, which I'll talk about that at a separate time. But oh man, it sure is an experience. It's just it's fun. I don't know. I'll give it B. I don't know. I don't want to put them above Joy Cons, but they're just a fun experience. I don't know. Next up, the Wii attachment controller. I don't know what else to call it. Now this thing is, I don't know. It's not it doesn't have that much like going for it. I like the trigger like it has like the shoulder buttons, but the trigger buttons are like next to the shoulder buttons instead of just behind them, which really trips you up. And it's just like an oval, and I'm used to having something to like rest my hand on. And when you don't have that and it's just an oval, it leaves your hands kind of floating, and like the button, besides like the trigger buttons, the button placement is pretty good. Except the joysticks, you can kind of see it in the picture. They have like these weird little like ridges, which do make well, they're nice sometimes, but they make moving the joystick feel tiny bit clunky sometimes. But I don't know, it's still an alright controller. I'll give it B tier. See, next up, the N64 controller. Man, this is something. I've seen so many different ways to hold this thing. It's hilarious. What I usually do is I hold it by this left part here with my right hand. No, this part on the right here with my right hand. And then instead of holding it like that and like stretching my thumb like 5 miles, I just hold it by this middle piece here. So I have my right hand here and my left hand here, which does put a lot of weight on that side, which doesn't really feel that great. But it's the only way you can hold it without having like insanely long thumbs. But I'll give it. I think I'll give it like. I'll give it C tier. See, next up, the Wii U gamepad. Now this one, the button placement and stuff is pretty alright. I will admit it's been a while since I've used it, but it has alright placement. The only thing I will say is that it's pretty heavy. It's like that thing's a cinder block, dude. It's a brick, but it's like for being just like worst Switch, I'll give it like I don't know. I'll give it B tier, and I'm only ranking like the controllers that I've used, so I'm skipping out on like a lot of them, like original Xbox controller, or I'm sorry, the GameCube controller. But like a lot of these controllers I still want to try. But last but not quite least is the SNES controller, and it definitely fixes the abominable edges of the NES controller, and it does add some more buttons, which is nice, and it fixes like the button placement. It's like actually diagonal this time, which is good, and yeah, it's just a little bit better. But I'll give it like I'll still give it C. Actually, yeah, I'm moving this thing down a little bit, but yeah, I'll still give it C tier. But yeah, that'll be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and goodbye. Bon appetit.